Commander Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the TSS Hyperion, Earth's most advanced warship, watching the endless dance of stars against the void. The year was 2487, and humanity had spread across hundreds of worlds, building an empire that stretched across multiple star systems. They weren't the most numerous species in the galaxy, nor the most technologically advanced, but they had earned a reputation that made even the oldest civilizations pause. Humans never gave up. The Hyperion led the Seventh Fleet, nicknamed the Revenants, for their uncanny ability to return from missions others deemed impossible. 27 ships of varying sizes, each a masterpiece of human engineering and determination, moved in perfect formation through the darkness of space. They had just completed their routine patrol of the Perseus Arm when everything changed. "Commander," Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cut through the silence of the bridge. "We're picking up something unusual." Chen turned from the viewport, her cybernetic eye automatically adjusting to the dimmer bridge lighting. "Define unusual, Lieutenant." "It's a signal, ma'am, but not like anything in our database. It's using quantum frequencies we theorized were possible, but never managed to stabilize." Rodriguez's hands flew over his holographic interface, "and it's being broadcast on every frequency simultaneously." Chen approached the central command platform, her boots making no sound on the smart metal floor. "Show me." The main hologram sprung to life, displaying a complex wave pattern that pulsed with an almost organic rhythm. Dr. Emily Wong, the fleet's chief xenolinguist, was already studying the pattern, her augmented reality interface projecting additional data only she could see. "This isn't random," Wong said, her voice tight with excitement. "There's a clear mathematical progression here, but it's unlike any language structure we've encountered. It's beautiful." The signal suddenly shifted, and a voice emerged from the ship's speakers. It spoke in no known language, but the desperation in its tone was universal. The voice cracked and broke, like someone trying to speak while drowning. Admiral James Hartford's hologram appeared on the bridge. The fleet commander's dark face was creased with concern. "Commander Chen, your ship is closest to the signal's origin. Initial calculations put it coming from the Nexus Void." Chen felt her artificial heart skip a beat. The Nexus Void was a region of space that had defied exploration. Ships that ventured too deep either disappeared or returned with their crews irrevocably changed. The Void had become humanity's boogeyman, a place where the laws of physics seemed more like suggestions. "Sir, entering the Void would mean violating the quarantine protocol," Chen said, though she was already calculating jump trajectories in her mind. Hartford's hologram flickered. "I'm aware, Commander. But this signal, our quantum analysts say it's impossible. The energy required to broadcast like this would exceed the output of an entire star. Whatever's sending this either has technology far beyond our understanding, or they're desperate enough to burn their entire civilization for one message," Chen finished. The Admiral nodded grimly. "The Security Council is split. Half want to ignore it, claim it's a natural phenomenon. The other half," he paused, looking directly at Chen, "they remember what it was like when we were alone in the darkness, crying out for help that never came." Chen understood. Before humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel, they had broadcast their own messages into the void, hoping someone would answer. No one ever did. They had to save themselves, fight their own battles, solve their own problems. It had made them stronger, but it had also left a mark on the species' psyche. "Your orders, sir." Hartford's hologram straightened. "Official orders are to maintain position and continue monitoring. Unofficial orders." He let the sentence hang. Chen smiled. It wasn't a warm expression. "Understood, sir. We'll maintain position until our sensors malfunction, and we're forced to implement Emergency Protocol 7. Emergency Protocol 7 hasn't been used since the Centauri crisis," Wong whispered. "Then I suppose we're overdue," Chen replied. She turned to her crew, these men and women who had followed her into hell more times than she could count. "This isn't an order. What we're about to do will likely end all our careers if we survive. Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship, now's the time." Not a single person moved. Rodriguez spoke first. "The Hyperion's already plotting the jump coordinates, ma'am. We can be in the void in 3 hours." Chen nodded, feeling a fierce pride in her crew. "Send word to the other ships. Anyone who wants to follow, they're welcome. Anyone who doesn't, no hard feelings." As the messages went out, Chen returned to the viewport. The void was visible from here, a region of space where the stars seemed to blur and shift, like looking through tears. The signal continued to pulse through the ship, that desperate voice crying out in its unknown language. "Hold on," Chen whispered to whoever was out there. "We're coming." Within the hour, all 27 ships of the 7th Fleet reported ready for jump. They had all disabled their tracking systems, officially making them ghosts in the vast network of human space. Chen gave the order, and the fleet vanished into the quantum realm, leaving behind only echoes and rumors of humanity's deadliest fleet answering a call that would change the galaxy forever. Emerging from quantum space into the Nexus void was like diving into a sea of broken glass. Reality itself seemed to splinter around the fleet's quantum shields, creating cascading rainbows of light that shouldn't exist in the vacuum of space. Commander Chen watched as her crew fought against waves of nausea, their augmented bodies struggling to process the impossible physics of the void. "Status report," she commanded, her cybernetic eye rapidly adjusting to the strange visual distortions. "All ships present and accounted for," Rodriguez answered, his dark skin pale, but his voice steady. "Though our positioning systems are confused. They're showing us in 3 different locations simultaneously." Dr. Wong was hunched over her station, her AR interface flickering wildly. "The signal's stronger here. Much stronger. But there's something else." She paused, frowning. "There are patterns in the background radiation. They look like echoes of transmissions, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Some appear to be centuries old." Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "You're saying we're not the first to answer this call?" "No," Wong replied softly. "We're just the first to make it this far." The fleet pushed deeper into the void, their formation tight despite the spatial distortions that made normal navigation impossible. The Hyperion's quantum AI was working overtime, processing the impossible data streams that flooded their sensors. That's when they found the first ship. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the Hyperion. Its hull covered in crystalline structures that might have once been beautiful. Now they were dark and lifeless, like the eyes of a dead god. The ship was clearly alien in design, but what caught Chen's attention were the scars, massive gashes in the hull that couldn't have been made by any known weapon. "Life signs?" Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. "None, Commander," the ship's medical officer, Dr. Patel, responded. "But there's something odd about the molecular decay. According to our scans, this ship has been here for over 10,000 years, but the damage looks recent." As they ventured further, they found more ships, hundreds of them, forming a graveyard that stretched across the twisted space of the void. Each vessel was different, representing countless alien civilizations, each bearing the same mysterious wounds. The sight of so many dead ships should have been terrifying, but Chen felt something else: anger. "Commander," Rodriguez called out, his voice tight. "We're picking up a massive structure ahead. It's bigger than anything we've ever encountered." The structure slowly came into view through the shifting chaos of the void. It was a station, if something so vast could be called that. It seemed to be built from the same crystalline material as the first derelict ship they'd found, but parts of it were clearly constructed from other materials, added over what must have been millennia. "The signal's coming from there," Wong confirmed, "and it's changed. The mathematical patterns are shifting, becoming more complex. I think it's reacting to our presence." Before Chen could respond, a new voice filled the bridge, not through the speakers, but directly in their minds. The universal translators built into their neural implants struggled for a moment before converting the alien thoughts into words. "You came," the voice said, a mixture of relief and sorrow in its tone. "We hoped someone would. We hoped someone could." Chen stepped forward, her military training warring with her instinct to help. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Fleet ship Hyperion. Identify yourself." We're the archivists," the voice replied. "We have watched for eons, recorded the rise and fall of countless civilizations. We have witnessed the pattern repeat itself countless times, helpless to prevent it. But you humans are different." "Different how?" Chen asked, even as warning signals began blaring across the fleet. Something was moving among the derelict ships, something massive. "You fight," the voice said simply. "When others flee, you stand. When others submit, you resist. When others die, you survive. That is why we called you. That is why we burned our last star to send the signal." The movement became clearer, a massive shape, darker than the void itself, slithering between the dead ships. It was bigger than Chen's entire fleet combined, its surface seeming to absorb both light and reality itself. "What we witnessed, what we recorded, was not random," the voice continued. "It was hunting, culling. Every civilization that reached beyond its cradle, that touched the stars. They were found, tested, and if deemed unworthy, consumed. We watched it happen thousands of times, bound by our vow of non-interference. But we could not watch forever. Not after we saw what you humans had done." "What we had done?" Chen asked, watching as more dark shapes began to emerge from the void. "When it came for your colonies, your outposts, you did not submit. You did not run. You fought back. You lost battles but refused to lose the war. For the first time in our recorded history, the hunter was forced to retreat. That is why we broke our vow. That is why we called you here." The dark shapes were surrounding the fleet now, their very presence causing the quantum shields to fluctuate. Chen understood with sudden clarity. This wasn't just a distress call. It was a trap, but not for them. "You didn't call us for help," she said, a grim smile spreading across her face. "You called us for hunting lessons." The voice held a note of fierce satisfaction as it replied, "Yes. And they came, just as we knew they would. They cannot resist investigating potential prey. The hunter has found what it believes to be easy targets, a small fleet, isolated in the void. But we have watched you humans. We know better." Chen turned to her crew, seeing the same fierce determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. Humanity had never wanted to be the galaxy's warriors. They had dreamed of being explorers, diplomats, friends to all species. But time and time again, they had been forced to fight, to survive, to protect not just themselves but others. "All ships," she commanded, her voice carrying to every vessel in her fleet. "Battle formations. The 7th Fleet is about to remind the galaxy why we're called the Revenants." The hunter was about to learn why humanity's deadliest fleet had earned its reputation, and the galaxy was about to change forever. The void erupted into chaos as the hunter's forms surged forward, their dark mass seeming to devour the starlight around them. Commander Chen's augmented mind processed the tactical display with inhuman speed, noting how the enemy entities moved like a coordinated swarm despite their massive size. "All ships, execute Maneuver Theta 7, Chen commanded. "Let's show them why humanity doesn't fight fair." The 7th Fleet's formation split apart with practiced precision, each ship activating their quantum drives in a carefully calculated sequence. To an outside observer, it would have appeared as if the human fleet had simply scattered in panic. The hunters' forms surged forward, eager to pursue what they perceived as fleeing prey. That's when the trap was sprung. "Now," Chen ordered. Every ship in the fleet simultaneously activated their modified quantum drives, but instead of jumping to new locations, they created a complex web of overlapping quantum fields. In normal space, this would have been suicide. In the void, where physics already bent and twisted, it created something unprecedented. The hunters' forms suddenly found themselves caught in a maze of fractured space-time, their massive bodies trapped in a web of quantum distortions. They writhed in confusion, their dark masses contracting and expanding as they tried to adapt to the impossible geometries surrounding them. Direct hit confirmed on Entity Alpha, Rodriguez reported, his fingers dancing across his console. Quantum torpedoes are having an effect, but minimal damage. These things, they're absorbing most of the energy. Chen nodded grimly. Switched to graviton lances, full power. The Hyperion's main weapon powered up, its energy signature causing the nearby quantum distortions to pulse with sympathetic resonance. The graviton lance fired, a beam of concentrated gravitational force that could tear a planet apart. It struck one of the hunter's forms dead center. The creature screamed. It wasn't a sound. It was a psychic shockwave that hammered every mind in the fleet. Dr. Wong collapsed at her station, blood trickling from her nose. Even Chen's heavily augmented nervous system struggled to process the alien agony. "They're not invulnerable," Chen announced to the fleet, her voice steady despite the pounding in her head. "Concentrated graviton fire on my mark. Target their central mass." The hunters' forms were recovering, adapting to the quantum web that had trapped them. They began to move in new ways, their bodies shifting through dimensions that human minds couldn't properly perceive. But Chen had anticipated this. Dr. Wong now. Wong, despite her bleeding nose, activated the signal they had prepared. It was a modified version of the archivist's call, but instead of a plea for help, it was tuned to the exact frequency of the hunter's psychic screams. The effect was immediate and devastating. The hunters' forms recoiled, their coordinated movements becoming chaotic. In their confusion, they began to collide with each other, their dark masses merging and separating in ways that seemed to cause them pain. All ships, fire. 27 graviton lenses fired simultaneously, their beams converging on the largest concentration of the hunter's mass. Space itself seemed to scream as the gravitational forces tore into the ancient predator. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the darkness began to crack. Light poured from the fissures in the hunter's form, not the light of stars or explosions, but something older, something that predated the current universe. The creature's psychic death cry hammered the fleet again, but this time they were ready. Neural dampers absorbed the worst of it, allowing the human crews to maintain their focus. Second wave. Fire at will, Chen ordered. The fleet's smaller ships darted through the quantum web, launching salvos of gravimetric charges into the wounds their larger cousins had torn in the hunter's flesh. Each explosion widened the cracks, letting more of that impossible light spill into the void. But victory came with a price. 3 human ships had already been lost, their crews sacrificing themselves to maintain the quantum web that kept the hunter trapped. Chen could see more of the dark forms rallying, adapting to their tactics with terrifying speed. "Commander," Rodriguez called out, his voice tight with urgency. "The archivist's station is moving. It's changing." The massive crystalline structure was indeed transforming, its ancient surfaces flowing like liquid metal. As Chen watched, she realized it wasn't changing. It was waking up. The station that had recorded the death of countless civilizations was revealing its true nature. They weren't just watching, Chen whispered, understanding dawning in her augmented mind. They were learning. All this time, they were learning how to fight back. The archivist's voice returned to their minds, but it was different now, stronger, more focused. "We have recorded every battle, every tactic, every weakness. For eons we watched, waited, and prepared. Now, with humanity's strength joined with our knowledge, we can end this cycle." The station's transformation completed, revealing weapon systems that made the human fleet's armaments look like toys. But Chen noticed something crucial. The weapons weren't activating. "We have the tools," the archivist communicated, "but we never developed the will to use them. That is why we called you. That is what humanity can teach the galaxy." Chen understood. This wasn't just a battle. It was a test. The archivists hadn't just called humanity's deadliest fleet for their fighting prowess. They had called them because humans could do what the archivists could not: take action, make the hard choices, and live with the consequences. All ships, form up on the station, Chen commanded. We're going to teach these ancient bastards how humanity fights a war. As her fleet moved into position, Chen allowed herself a small smile. The hunter had spent eons culling species it deemed unworthy of the stars. Now it was about to learn what happened when you cornered a species that had spent its entire history learning to survive. The Archivist Station's weapons blazed to life under human control, ancient energies joining the fleet's graviton lances in a symphony of destruction. But the hunter was ancient beyond comprehension, and it had not survived eons by being easy to kill. Its wounded forms were already adapting, learning, evolving in real time to counter their attacks. Commander Chen stood at her command station, blood trickling from her ear as another psychic assault hammered the fleet. The neural dampeners were failing, and 3 more ships had been lost to the void. But she wasn't watching the battle. She was watching the data streams from the Archivist's archives, her cybernetic eye processing millions of years of recorded history in seconds. "Dr. Wong," she called out, her voice hoarse, "I need you to confirm something for me." Wong stumbled to Chen's station, her own augmented reality interface flickering with damage. Together they watched as Chen highlighted specific patterns in the historical data, moments when the hunter had appeared, attacked, and retreated. "There," Chen pointed. "Do you see it?" Wong's eyes widened. "They're not just hunting," she whispered. "They're feeding. Not on biology or technology, but on—" She paused, struggling to find the words. "Potential," Chen finished. "They feed on the potential future of each civilization they destroy. That's why they wait until species reach a certain level of advancement. They're farming the galaxy, harvesting possibilities." The Archivist's voice resonated in their minds, confirming their theory. Yes, they consume not just what is, but what could be. Each civilization's unique path of development, their possible futures, their potential contributions to the galaxy, all of it becomes sustenance for the hunters. Rodriguez's voice cut through their revelation. "Commander, we've lost the quantum web. The hunter is reforming." The tactical display showed the truth. The dark forms were merging into something new, something bigger. The wounded hunter was abandoning its swarm configuration for something more desperate and dangerous. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions," Chen ordered, but her mind was racing ahead. "Archivist, your weapons. They're not just weapons, are they? They're recording devices, designed to capture and preserve the essence of civilizations before they're consumed." "Correct." The ancient being confirmed. "We sought to preserve what we could, to maintain a record of what was lost. But we never found a way to release what we had preserved. The energy patterns are too complex, too vast." Chen's artificial heart began beating faster as a plan formed in her augmented mind. It was insane, impossible, and exactly the kind of thing humans were known for attempting. "What if we don't try to release it safely?" she asked. "What if we detonate it all at once?" The implications hit Wong like a physical blow. All those lost civilizations, their potential futures, their possible paths. If we release that energy into the hunter while it's wounded and consolidated, an overload of the very thing it feeds on. Chen nodded. But the release would be catastrophic. The quantum instabilities in the void would. It would create a chain reaction. The Archivist finished. The void itself would collapse, taking everything within it into a space between spaces. There would be no escape for anyone. Chen turned to her crew, seeing the understanding in their eyes. To destroy the hunter, they would have to sacrifice themselves and the Archivist Station. But in doing so, they would free every future civilization from the threat of harvest. "Send the evacuation order," she commanded. "Any ship that can still quantum jump is to retreat immediately. The Hyperion will stay to coordinate with the Archivist Station." "Commander," Rodriguez started to protest, but Chen cut him off. That's an order, Lieutenant. Humanity needs to know what happened here. They need to know why we did this. The surviving ships began to jump away, their quantum wakes creating ripples in the already unstable space of the void. The hunter, sensing something was wrong, began to move toward the station, its consolidated form a mountain of darkness that dwarfed everything around it. We will need time to reconfigure our preservation systems for maximum release, the archivist communicated. Can you hold it back? Chen smiled, and there was something fierce and proud in her expression. We're humanity's deadliest fleet. Buying time is what we do best. The Hyperion moved to intercept the hunter, its engines pushing to their limits. Behind them, the archivist station began to pulse with energies that had been carefully contained for millions of years. Dr. Wong, send everything we've learned about the hunter to the retreating ships. Lieutenant Rodriguez, divert all power to weapons and shields. Dr. Patel, prepare to overload our quantum core on my mark. Chen's orders came rapidly, each one acknowledged with grim determination. As the hunter loomed before them, larger than anything humanity had ever faced, Chen felt a strange peace. This was why humans had become what they were, not because they sought violence, but because they were willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. You've spent eons feeding on the potential of other species. Chen addressed the hunter directly, knowing it could sense her thoughts. Let's see how you handle a few million possibilities at once. The Hyperion charged forward, its weapons blazing, as behind them, the archivist station began its final transformation, from a repository of lost possibilities into a weapon that would change the galaxy forever. The Hyperion's quantum core screamed as it pushed beyond its design limits, its shields flickering under the hunter's relentless assault. Commander Chen's cybernetic systems were overloading, her augmented vision filling with error messages as she pushed both ship and crew to their absolute limits. They didn't need to win. They just needed to survive long enough. Station status, she demanded, her organic eye squinting through the blood trickling down her face. 87% conversion. The archivist's voice echoed in their minds, weaker now as it devoted most of its energy to the transformation. But the hunter senses what we're attempting. It's trying to stop the process. The tactical display showed the truth of those words. The hunter's consolidated form was splitting, trying to engage both the Hyperion and the station simultaneously. Tendrils of darkness reached out, attempting to corrupt the station's crystalline structure with void energy. Not today, Chen growled. Dr. Patel, initiate Protocol Omega. Rodriguez, plot a collision course. Dr. Wong, it's been an honor. Her crew's responses were immediate and unwavering. They had all known it might come to this. The Hyperion's remaining energy reserves were diverted to its quantum core, preparing for one final devastating maneuver. Commander, the archivist communicated urgently, what you're planning. The energy release from your quantum core will destabilize the void enough for you to complete the conversion. Chen finished. We know. We calculated the odds. There was a pause, then something like awe in the ancient being's mental voice. Throughout all our recordings, we have never witnessed such humanity. Chen allowed herself a small smile as she initiated the final sequence. The Hyperion's quantum core began to pulse, its rhythm matching the station's energy signature. The hunter, sensing the danger, tried to retreat, but it was too late. Now, Lieutenant. The Hyperion shot forward, its engines burning out as it accelerated to impossible speeds. At the last moment, Chen saw the hunter's true form through her failing cybernetic eye. Not just darkness, but an absence of possibility itself, a void in the fabric of potential that had fed on the futures of countless civilizations. The impact was beyond description. The Hyperion's quantum core detonated on contact, creating a cascading reaction that ripped through the physics of the void. The hunter's form was torn apart, not by the explosion itself, but by the sudden influx of raw quantum potential that flooded through the gaps in reality. 98%, the archivist announced. 99. Initiation complete. The station, now fully transformed, released its cargo of preserved possibilities. Millions of years of recorded potential, the combined might-have-beens of thousands of civilizations, crashed into the wounded hunter like a tsunami of pure creation. Where the hunter consumed possibility, this was an overdose that not even its ancient form could handle. The death of something so old, so vast, was not a simple thing. The hunter's dying scream echoed not just through space, but through time itself. The void began to collapse, reality rushing in to fill the space that had defied its laws for so long. But even as the Hyperion broke apart, even as the station itself began to dissolve under the strain of its final act, something unprecedented happened. The released possibilities, rather than dissipating, began to coalesce. The combined potential of thousands of extinct civilizations, their lost futures and unwalked paths, formed into something new. The archivist's last words reached not just the dying crew of the Hyperion, but every spacefaring race in the galaxy. We were wrong. The true power was never in recording or preserving. It was in releasing, in sharing, in allowing possibility to flow freely. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy, not just the courage to fight, but the wisdom to know when to let go. The void collapsed completely, taking with it the hunter, the station, and the brave crew of the Hyperion. But where that region of twisted space had once been, something else remained. A nexus of possibilities, a place where the boundaries between what is and what could be had grown thin. In the years that followed, the surviving ships of the Seventh Fleet brought their story back to Earth. But they brought something else as well. The knowledge preserved by the archivists, freely given to all species. The hunter's death had marked the end of an age of fear, but humanity's sacrifice had ushered in something greater, an era of shared potential. New civilizations arose, unafraid to reach for the stars. The quantum technologies pioneered in that final battle led to breakthroughs that transformed society. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that Commander Sarah Chen and her crew had proven with their final act, that the greatest power in the universe wasn't the ability to consume possibility, but to create it. Where the void had once been, a new coalition of species built a memorial station. They called it Dawn's Point, and on its central column, written in every known language of the galaxy, was a simple message. To the crew of the TFS Hyperion and humanity's Seventh Fleet, who taught the galaxy that the future belongs not to those who hoard its possibilities, but to those who dare to share them. In their final moment of victory, they gave us not just survival, but the courage to thrive. And in the quantum fluctuations that still rippled through that region of space, some said they could hear echoes of distant human laughter, a reminder that even in sacrifice, humanity's spirit remained unbroken, eternal, and free.